So this is a little more recent than actually about around the same time as the Pujols situation. This is the 2011 World Series. This is Game 6. This is what if Nelson Cruz makes a better play on the ball in the
I would
bottom of the ninth in
say
Game 6.
I would go even deeper. What if Nelson Cruz wasn't in the game?
Yeah, he
Like
probably
that's
shouldn't have
kind
been
of
in the game.
like there's always one of these things of that when you bring in a defensive replacement, like you're always kind of wondering, like, is it that important? And especially when it's a bat like Nelson Cruz. Nelson Cruz was also young enough in his career that, I mean, he was like, he was I was a fantasy baseball player. I knew of how well of a player he was, but to the everyday baseball fan at that time. But yeah, if he makes that catch now, I have one of the worst stories I can share as a Cardinals fan. It's kind of funny and sad, but it's also kind of one that I reflect on. So a little bit of a background on me is that I have not had a drink in over about 2.5 years. And one of my, I guess I would say, what should have been the sign moments was I actually was blacked out drunk and passed out during that moment in Game 6.
No.
So what happened with me is that I was not watching the games with anybody. I was not going out and about. I'm the only Cardinals fan. I was where I was living. So I was watching the games by myself in my house because like the bar I would hang out at, it was never told, hey, don't bring that shit here. It was just kind of like I didn't want to be around because I know that if people try to push my buttons, like I was very emotional about my sports teams at that point in time. I don't have that. I wish I cared that much now. They've broken me to that point, I guess I would say. Or maybe I've just kind of realized there's more important things in life than your sports team and
Yeah, it
having your
comes
sanity
with
attached
age and
to it
maturity.
maybe
Yeah.
isn't again, I was a heavy drinker this time. So I had like gone out to for lunch with my buddy that day and like had a good old time. Went home and like was drinking beers during that game, and the Cardinals were they were down 6-3 in that game, and it was not looking good. And I had a bottle of Jameson in my house, and not being, I had too much to drink to go drive more and get more beer, so I started drinking the Jameson, and then I ended up passing out and waking up to all these missed phone calls and text messages. But the I guess, interesting part about all this is that when I woke up, I turned on MLB Network and they were replaying the game shortly around where I blacked out. So I got to relive this moment. So, like, in my head at the time, I told myself it was funny that I missed the biggest moments or probably the best baseball moments, arguably ever. At least it's in the conversation. You can't win or lose that argument as far as I'm concerned. But that I didn't. Now I kind of find it of going like that should have been a sign you had a problem, buddy. Like what do you do this for? So, but yes, if Nelson Cruz makes a catch, that's I mean, that you got to realize how magical that 2011 St. Louis Cardinals team is. If you ever want to actually bring me to tears, not because of the moment I just mentioned, but there's a compilation video called "What a Team, What a Ride" that's playing with. You end up hearing the song "Every Tear Has a Water" or "Every Teardrop Has a Waterfall" by Coldplay playing, and it's showing the Cardinals kind of journey through the season and the comeback in that moment. But that team was also the one that was left for dead before the playoffs. They were 9.5 games out, I believe, going into September. And I actually outlined as a fan, like I was a stand-up comedian at that time. I remember I was actually going into a comedy contest and I was sitting at a bar with my buddies and discussing with them how the Cardinals were actually going to make this comeback and actually get into the playoffs and how they were a scary, dangerous team. And then for that to actually come to, that was just overall just absolutely just magical team that unlike any other. And where I think that maybe I've realized my sports fandom peaks. So if Nelson Cruz makes that catch, I probably have a different like outlook on life or a different outlook as a sports fan as the Cardinals, where I probably would be that bitter person that demanded, or they probably would still affect my mental psyche because there was something about my attachment to that team. Chris Carpenter was my favorite pitcher, big game pitcher of the Cardinals of my Cardinals lifetime. And I feel like there was almost like divine intervention that they won that World Series because everyone forgets this. Actually, I have another what if after this.
Yeah, please. But yeah, first of all, congrats on your sobriety. It's awesome to hear. But yeah, that was a big moment. I mean, there's a couple different outcomes. Obviously, if he's playing further back and he makes the catch, then it's bottom of the ninth, 2 outs. That's game over. They win the series 4-2. If he just plays it a little better off the wall, maybe he catches the runner at third, and it doesn't
I
tie the
don't think
game,
that.
and then
No,
it ends.
with 2 outs, he never was going to have a chance of getting
Yeah,
anybody at third. What I would say is that it's like always one of these things of that I still play beer league softball, and everyone says first step back. Everyone, for some reason, it's something weird, and it's like probably in that moment because you have to wonder how aware you are of the moments of that there are 2 outs, but are you thinking there are 2 outs in the World Series, and then for you to almost make the most fundamental mistake on the biggest stage of not making your first step back or even making a step at all. I don't even think he made. It is amazing. But again, maybe it was exposed later on that he wasn't a great fielder, but the guy made his bones as a DH most of his career, and maybe you could have. I don't know the lineup situations as to why he was not. There was not a defensive replacement out there for him, but
Yeah, he's
yeah.
just
But if he
not.
makes that catch, I mean, it's game over, and it was hey, the Cardinals came up short, but it was an amazing. I mean, that 2011 Rangers team is one of the most ridiculous lineups to never win a World Series. When you look at that lineup, I mean, the idea, like I said, I think Nelson Cruz batted sixth on that team. Like, there was some fucking studs. Excuse me, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to swear or not on this
No,
show.
please, it's all good.
There were some absolute studs, and I mean, Josh Hamilton again on the theme of sobriety. I mean, like everyone forgets how good he was, and then I mean, like again, just that 2011 Rangers team was scary good. I remember being terrified during that World Series.
Yeah, and of course that was Game 6. The Cardinals go on to win Game 7 pretty convincingly, I think 6-2. So that was the hard part was winning Game 6.